morning. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. It's the start of a new trading day. Let's kick off with our banner story. The fresh round of stricter mobility curbs in Metro Manila and other parts of the country has prompted economic managers to further cut their growth outlook for the year. The Development Budget Coordination Committee now expects the economy to grow by 4 to 5% this 2021. This is lower than its previous target of 6 to 7%. The DBCC said the 6 to 7% target would have been achievable without the present spike in COVID-19 infections. The DBCC said it made the new downward revision on the back of the emergence of the Delta variant and the additional restrictions imposed to curb its spread. The DBCC had originally penciled a growth target of 6.5 to 7.5% for 2021. They said the strategy now is to accelerate the rollout of the vaccination program and to continue managing risks carefully by imposing granular quarantines. For 2022, the DBCC kept its growth target of 7 to 9%. Metro Manila mayors are leaving it to the IATF to decide whether or not to end or extend the ECQ in the capital region by Friday. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos said mayors will simply commit to double up vaccination and contact tracing efforts while enforcing strict health protocols, whatever the IATF decides to do. In the past, the Metro Manila Council would submit a proposed community quarantine status for IATF deliberation and approval by the President. But NCR 17 mayors did not come up with any recommendations this time, with Abalos announcing that they are completely deferring the decision to the IATF. Meanwhile, businessmen are still up in arms about the detrimental effects of a possible ECQ extension to the economy. In fact, Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry Acting President Edgardo Lacson called lockdowns a, quote, reckless response to the fresh surge in COVID cases.
Specter of lockdown, which we are experiencing right now, the third and the fourth quarter looks gloomier than expected. Give our economy a chance to rebuild, recharge, by avoiding lockdown as the quick and reckless solution.
Now, after all of that market optimism yesterday from investors pricing in the possible easing of lockdowns, they will now be reacting to the slash GDP growth targets, with many already having said that they have priced that. And you can see on my terminal here quite a slide by 0.3% to 6659.08. Nevertheless, this 4 to 5% new DBCC target is still generally within the 4.9 or encompassing that 4.9% median, which the Bloomberg survey estimate has on their economists, and that actually brings the official forecast more in line with the market consensus. Still, you've got Mitul Kotecha. He is from TD Securities in Singapore, saying the risks to growth remain on the downside until such curbs are lifted, and of course amid greater vaccinations and or reduced COVID cases. Well, whether or not this is good news, we are not the only ones slashing our government forecast. You've got governments from Malaysia as well as Thailand slashing their economic growth estimates as well. The good news is, however, that yesterday we did see foreign net buying. We did get 90.5 million pesos in net buying. That was the highest net foreign buying we've seen since at least August 13. Let's take a look at the sectors here. Dragging down our bourse is the financial space. You've got them down by 0.5%, followed by properties and holding firms. And basically everyone is seeing quite a correction downward from after that 3-day rally that we saw. And speaking of the financials, let's take a peek at how the specific banks are performing this morning. You can see BDO, our biggest lender, down the most by 1.6%. It's incidentally a measure that will be relaxing the country's Bank Secrecy Law has now been included under the legislative priorities of President Duterte. This is according to BSP Governor Ben Diokno. Now, just to recall, that House Bill 8991 will be allowing the central bank to look into the accounts of bank officials and employees when there are sufficient grounds of fraud. This has now been approved at the House Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries. And finally, just a quick peek At our movers this morning, you've got LTG Group leading the pack up by 0.8% together with Pure Gold and First Gen. But the ones, of course, still suffering the most here are SM Prime, our biggest, of course, real estate firm, down by 2.2%, followed by Metro Pacific and BDO. Now, here are the other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Business leaders are appealing to the government to allow mandatory vaccination in the private sector. PCCI acting president Edgardo Lacson said businesses now want to require employees to get their COVID shots before they are allowed back to work. The Labor Department had already issued a circular against no vaccine, no work policies, calling the practice discriminatory. But the PCCI insists that the Labor Department should recognize the management prerogative of business owners since they simply want to, quote, protect people from themselves. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion is pushing for greater mobility for the vaccinated population. He says allowing only fully vaccinated patrons into restaurants and establishments would allow the country to slowly open up the economy. Concepcion is also proposing a segregation in public transport where vaccinated passengers will not be traveling together with the unvaccinated. He said these proposed measures are not discriminatory but are actually protective of those who have yet to receive their vaccines. The DTI says it is in favor of greater mobility for the vaccinated population, but only when a bigger percentage of the total population have been inoculated. The availability of vaccines and the efficiency of their rollout are key determinants for any country's recovery, and ours has fallen short. Now, here to share with us how we could do better from a technological perspective, we have with us Secretary Fortunato de la Peña of the Department of Science and Technology. Good morning, Secretary, and welcome to Businessworld Live.
Good morning, Danie. Good morning to our viewers.
Secretary, let's take a step back from your standpoint, from a DOST standpoint, scientific standpoint, technological standpoint. Are you happy with the vaccine rollout, the procurement, the availability? When we look at the timing between the shots, the storage capacity, and what's needed, as well as the transport and logistics and supply side issues, are we doing the best we can right now?
Well, as far as doing the best, I believe we are doing the best right now. But as in any undertaking, there are so many challenges and restrictions that we have been encountering. For example, the vaccine arrivals are all dependent on the suppliers because we are just depending on vaccines that are coming from outside. Secondly, we have mobility problems like in ECQ, people are not that free to move around. And in addition, transport facilities may not be that sufficient. And then we pass through periods where the weather conditions are very bad. Okay, so all of this, and add to that the fact that some of our fellow Filipinos are not yet decided. But if we compare our vaccination rate, I guess, with some of our neighbors, basically okay naman, ano? But siyempre, hindi pa yun talagang target na ating isinet at the beginning. But I think our vaccine team is doing its best.
Sir, you mentioned po we are quite dependent on the supply issue. How can we reduce our dependency on that? What is the possibility of even locally manufacturing vaccines?
Yes, I think that really is one of the best solutions if we can manufacture vaccines locally. But we have to understand that there are certain time frames that we have to work on. So, for example, if we are talking of the short term, and by short term, we are talking of year 2022 and 2023, this would be the so-called fill and finish operations, okay? Wherein we have a local company here which will tie up with the originator of the bulk product from outside, and then these are delivered to us in bulk, and then these are finished and filled and finished here in facilities of our local company. In the medium term, we look at manufacture starting from the uh, uh, from the very beginning, okay? I mean, from the raw material, okay, up to the vaccine itself. That is the medium term, and there is already one local company that is eyeing that strategy of long-term production of vaccines from bulk antigen to fill and finish. In fact, there is also a company that is eyeing the production of non-COVID vaccines towards our national immunization program. But in the long term, what we want is that through our planned Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines, we will be able to develop vaccines on our own. Of course, probably not all right away, but we can aim at developing vaccines locally from our R&D, and then this can be mass produced by our manufacturing companies here.
Sir, when you say short term, what is the timing po? As I understand, there are 7 applications so
Mhm.
far to produce the vaccines, whether or not it's a partnership and they just do the last part here, or whether they do it from the beginning. What's the timing of this? At least in the short term to be happening po.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, it is sometime in 2022 or 2023.
Okay.
At the moment, it is we actually divided the work. DOST is taking care of the vaccine evaluation and selection, and DTI is taking care of assisting the companies who intends to do the manufacturing here. And for example, the short term, which is fill and finish manufacturing, is targeted on 2022 and 2023. So
Okay.
not yet before the end of 2021.
Copy. Sir, will this make the vaccines in any way cheaper? How can we understand that? And will the government be supportive of procuring vaccines if they're manufactured locally? Is this just, are we targeting to have all of the vaccines manufactured locally instead of importing, or will there be some sort of split that you are targeting?
Well, I think realistically, we probably will have that kind of arrangement where some of them will be locally produced and some will be procured outside. We were able to get the assistance of the Asian Development Bank in developing the appropriate business model for local vaccine manufacturing, both for COVID and non-COVID vaccines. The first requirement, of course, is that the potential local vaccine manufacturer must have experience in manufacturing biologicals, and they have to comply with good manufacturing practices. They should have a strong quality assurance and control processes, and definitely the availability of sterile filling line that will be suitable to the vaccines, and that will fit the requirements of the originator vaccine manufacturer. There are certain kinds of vaccines, COVID-19s, that require very special containment. Okay, for example, the viral vaccines, okay, would require extra containment, and they would need more of vial production, not necessarily syringe production.
Okay. Sir, just for our viewers to understand, have we ever done this before? Have we been manufacturing our own vaccines before? Of course, not COVID-19. And how safe is this? Of course, there's a lot of vaccine choosiness, but even in the country, how can we reassure the population that this will be safe? That this will be world class?
Well, probably that is one thing that saddens me, because I saw a picture in 1939 of the Philippines, led by the College of Public Health of UP Manila, I think, using the facilities in Alabang, where our ITM is located, donating vaccines to China.
Wow.
1939,
Yes. So we've been there. We've done that, sir.
yes.
Okay. And what is the chances, sir, that we can get that back? Of course, this also links to your Balik Scientist program. You wanted to bring these scientists back home. Do you see more Filipino scientists involved, particularly when it comes to virology and producing the COVID-19 vaccine here?
That's right. Before I go to that, let me just mention that the ARTA, which is in charge, anti-red tape authority, which is in charge of facilitating processes, has come into the picture. And together, DTI, DOST, DOH, FDA, and ARTA came up with processes that will ensure fast issuance of permits, okay, so that this will be of help to the local vaccine manufacturers. But going into the development of vaccines here, hoping that the Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines will be approved. It has been passed on third reading at the House of Representatives. Now it will go to the Senate. And we were very happy because since a year ago, when we announced that we want to put up a Virology Institute at the Department of Science and Technology, there are so many Filipino scientists based abroad who communicated with us and who indicated that they would want to help. And the first batch has arrived. I welcomed them last August 13, and seven of them, basically, they are into virology and microbiology. But in terms of work experience, they have different, shall we say, career tracks. So we have two who are both virologists and microbiologists, Dr. Elpidio Nadala and Dr. Lourdes Nadala from the US. They established the diagnostics for the real world. This is something that they put up themselves, and they have been into rapid diagnostic tests for the detection of various virus-related diseases like hepatitis, etc. And there we have also somebody from the UK in the person of Dr. Teodoro Fajardo, again, molecular virology and molecular biology, working at the School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the UK. And then we have Dr. Mayra Hosmilio at the University of Cambridge, who is more into veterinary and medical virology. You must remember that the Virology Institute we are putting up is not only for diseases attacking humans, but also viruses
Okay.
attacking animals and plants. And then somebody, Dr. Pantua, has put up his own company, and it's now in operation here in the Philippines. And then we have somebody whose specialty is really in putting up and assisting the technology startups. And one is very good in poultry and working at the Poultry Research Center of the US.
Excellent. So, of course, we have these people who have just arrived in August, hoping to help us speed up this effort in manufacturing our own vaccines. But also, as you mentioned, there is the Balik Scientist program, which is inviting and enticing many more Filipino scientists. We have all of that talent, just there, ready to be tapped. Hopefully, they will be coming home and helping us with this effort. Maraming salamat, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña of Department of Science and Technology.
Thank you also, Danie.
And that's the first look into the business day. Today is Thursday, August 19, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market close. That's at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.